Michael Chandler versus Benson Henderson is a lightweight bout. Michael Chandler has achieved a record of 20 wins, 5 losses. Benson Henderson has achieved a record of 28 wins, 8 losses. Alright, so these two fighters are pretty much the same age, with Benson sitting at 36 and a half years old, and Michael sitting at 34 years old, which pretty much means that Michael Chandler is going to be a little bit fresher than Benson, as he is 2 years younger. Alright, so Benson Henderson actually started off his career very well, with out of his first 13 fights, he actually ended up winning 12 of them. Now, of those 12 wins, 5 of them were actually inside of the WEC, where he had 3 guillotine wins, a unanimous decision win, and a KO win. Now, after that nice start to his career, he hit a roadblock in Anthony Pettis and ended up losing that fight by unanimous decision. Now, after that loss, he ended up joining the UFC, and he put on a show with 7 straight decision wins over Mark Bokek, Jim Miller, Clay Guida, Frankie Edgar back-to-back, Nate Diaz, and Gilbert Melendez. Now, after that nice start to his UFC career, with 4 of those wins actually being title wins, he fought Anthony Pettis for a second time, with the last time he faced, he actually lost that one, and it turned out he actually lost again, but this time it was to armbar in the first round. Now, after that loss, he actually wanted to get back up to title contention, so he fought Josh Thompson, and then after that, Rustam Khabilov in 2 main events, and he actually ended up beating Thompson by decision, and Khabilov by rear naked choke in the 4th round. Now, after those 2 wins, after he lost the belt, he ended up fighting Rafael dos Anjos and Donald Cerrone, but he ended up losing both fights by KO and decision. Now, after those 2 losses, he was thinking about leaving for Bellator, but he decided to stick around for 2 more wins over Brandon Thatch by submission and the BMF belt holder Jorge Masvidal, which he beat by split decision. Now, after that, he left for Bellator, and he actually had a pretty bad first 4 fights, as he lost to Andre Kornshov by decision, Patrick Pitbull by split decision, and the man he is about to face in Michael Chandler by split decision, with his only win in the span coming to Patricio Pitbull because his opponent hurt his leg. Now, after that disappointing couple of losses, he actually racked up 4 straight wins over Roger Huerta by submission, Syed Awad by decision, Adam Piccolotti by split decision, and most recently, Miles Jury by decision. Alright, now let's take a look at his opponent, Michael Chandler. So, Michael Chandler has basically spent his whole career inside of Bellator, with a total of 22 out of his 25 fights have been inside of Bellator, where so far he's fought guys like Eddie Alvarez twice, and he actually beat Benson Henderson. Also, in his last 10 fights, he's gone 8-2, with his 2 losses being because he hurt his ankle in a fight he most likely would have won, and a fight where he was getting KO'd in the first round. Alright, so Benson Henderson, he just really hasn't looked the same since his days in the UFC, whereas, yes, Michael Chandler does look a little bit slower, but seeing as Benson is 2.5 years older than Michael, I just see Michael trying to keep this fight going all the way, 5 rounds, and maybe try to get the win by decision, and we'll probably see Benson doing the same. But I bet he'll look for the finish more, seeing as the last time they faced, it went to decision, and he ended up losing by split decision. Alright, so that leads to my decision. I think that Michael Chandler is going to get the win in a very close fight by unanimous decision. Alright, if you agree, disagree, or just have something to say, make sure to put it in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to back to every single one of those comments. Make sure to like, subscribe with the notifications turned on so you don't miss the absolute best MMA content out there. It's been fun, but I'm out of here. Matt Mitrione versus Timothy Johnson is a heavyweight bout. Matt Mitrione has achieved a record of 13 wins, 7 losses. Timothy Johnson has achieved a record of 13 wins, 6 losses. Alright, so Matt Mitrione is actually 42 years old, and Timothy Johnson is 35 years old. This fight in the odds is actually really close, as Matt is the minus 135 favorite at the time of this recording, and Timothy Johnson is the plus 105 underdog, which basically means this fight is a 50-50. Alright, so Matt Mitrione has fought some list of guys, including guys like Kimbo Slice, who he beat by KO in the second round, Chet Congo, who he lost to by decision, Roy Nelson, who he lost to by first round KO, Brendan Schaub, who he lost to by submission in the first round, Derek Lewis, who he actually beat by KO in the first round, Gabriel Gonzaga, who he beat by KO in the first round, Ben Rothwell, who he lost to by decision, Travis Brown, who he lost to from ground and pound in the third round, Fedor Emelianenko, who he actually KO'd in the first round, Roy Nelson, who he beat by decision, and Ryan Bader, who he lost to by decision. Wow. You guys probably thought when you guys saw this guy's record, you probably thought it was super bad, but as you guys can see, he's been fighting the best of the best, and sometimes even beating them, such as Fedor Emelianenko, which just shows how good and experienced this guy is. Alright, now let's take a look at his opponent, Timothy Johnson. So, Timothy Johnson is a pretty good fighter himself, as so far he's beat guys like Shamil Abdurrahimov and Marcin Tybura, and he's also fought guys like Alexander Volkov and Chet Congo. Alright, so in this fight, the odds say it's a 50-50, probably because Matt has been the better fighter in the past, but he's older, so that might even out their skill sets, seeing that he might be a little bit slower. But, guys like DC and Stipe are two guys literally at the top of their division, which means that Matt may still have what it takes to beat Timothy Johnson. And seeing as Timothy Johnson has only beaten two really good type competition, and Matt has basically fought pretty much everyone, that leads to my decision. I'm going to give the win to Matt Mitrione by KO in the second round. Alright, if you agree, disagree, or just have something to say, make sure to put it in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to back to every single one of those comments. Make sure to like, subscribe with the notifications turned on so you don't miss the absolute best MMA content out there. It's been fun, but I'm out of here. Curtis Millender versus Sabah Homasi is a middleweight bout. Curtis Millender has achieved a record of 18 wins, 5 losses. Sabah Homasi has achieved a record of 13 wins, 8 losses. Now, before I start this video, I just have to mention that Curtis Millender is actually moving down from middleweight, as he was the 89th pro middleweight in the world, and he will be the much bigger man in this fight due to that. Alright, so Curtis Millender has had 5 fights in the UFC, and he actually won his first 3 against Thiago Alves from a knee, Max Griffin by unanimous decision, and Siar Bahadurzada also by unanimous decision. After those 3 wins in a row, he ended up fighting 2 absolute beasts in Alezu Zaleski and Bilal Muhammad, but he ended up losing both of those fights by rear naked choke and decision. Now, after those 2 losses, he actually left the UFC to go fight in Bellator, where he fought Moses Murrieta and ended up winning that fight by unanimous decision. Alright, now let's take a look at his opponent, Sabah Homasi. So, Sabah Homasi has won 9 of his 13 wins by KO, 2 by submission, and 2 by decision. Now, his only real good fights against real competition were his only 3 fights inside the UFC against Tim Means and Abdulrazak Al-Hassan 2 times in a row. But in all 3 of those fights, he ended up getting either KO'd in the first round or KO'd in the second round. Alright, so these guys' ages are pretty similar, so I really doubt that age will play a big factor in this fight. And because Sabah Homasi's wins weren't really against very good competition, and his losses weren't either, aside from the times where he got absolutely dominated by Tim Means and Abdul Razak Al Hassan twice. I mean, he really hasn't really shown that he has the skills to beat a guy like Curtis Millender, who honestly has the skills to be a top-tier welterweight in the UFC, which leads to my decision. I think that Curtis Millender is going to get the win by KO in the second round. Alright, if you agree, disagree, or just have something to say, make sure to put it in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to back to every single one of those comments. Make sure to like, subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss the absolute best MMA content out there. It's been fun, but I'm out of here. Miles Jury versus Georgi Karakhanyan is a lightweight bout. Miles Jury has achieved a record of 18 wins, 5 losses. Georgi Karakhanyan has achieved a record of 29 wins, 10 losses. Alright, so Georgi Karakhanyan is actually 35 years old, and Miles Jury is 31 years old, so he'll for sure have the advantage in this fight. Alright, so Georgi Karakhanyan actually had a very good start to his pro career, as in his first 15 fights, he actually went 13-1-1, with one of those wins actually coming inside of Bellator by a knee KO in the first round. After that impressive streak, he faced Joe Warren inside of Bellator, but he ended up losing that fight by unanimous decision. After that loss, he came back with a unanimous decision win over Anthony Leone, but that win was disappointingly followed by a third-round KO loss from Patricio Pitbull. After that loss, he chose to leave Bellator for a while, where he fought a little bit worse competition as he went on a 9-fight win streak before losing to Rick Glenn because he injured his rib in the fight and he just had to stop. Now, after that loss, he joined back into the Bellator and he beat Bubba Jenkins by submission in the first round, but after that, he actually ended up losing his next 2 fights by decision to Daniel Weichel and Pat Curran. Now, after that 2-fight losing streak, he actually ended up fighting Bubba Jenkins in a rematch, and he got the first round KO. After that win, he beat Kirill Medvedevsky because he got injured in the first round. Then in his next 5 fights, he had a decision win, a second-round submission win, but he also had 2 decision losses and a first-round heel hook KO loss. Alright, now, let's take a look at his opponent, Miles Jury. Alright, so Miles Jury has had an amazing start to his career himself with 15 straight wins by either KO or decision, where he's so far at that point beat guys like Chris Saunders, Michael Johnson, Diego Sanchez, and Takanori Gomi. Alright, so after that amazing start to his career, he ended up losing 2 fights in a row to absolute top-tier talent in Donald Cerrone by decision and Charles Oliveira by submission. Now, after those 2 losses, he actually came back with 2 wins over Mike De La Torre and Rick Glenn. Now, after those 2 comeback wins, he actually went on a 3-fight losing streak again to some amazing MMA fighters in Chad Mendes, Andre Fili, and after those 2, he left the UFC and he lost to Benson Henderson inside of Bellator. And after those 3 losses, he had 1 more fight inside of Bellator where he beat Brandon Gertz. Now, Miles is one of those guys, kind of like Derek Brunson, where he just really can't beat the best of the best, but he seems to always find a way to beat guys that are a little bit, sort of ranked under him and not as good as him. And, I mean, I think Georgi Karakhanyan is one of those guys who couldn't really even get into one of those situations where he even fights a top-tier talent. And Miles is always a guy that beats guys like him, with all of his losses coming to title holders, title challengers, or top-tier ranked opponents. And I don't really think Georgi is one of those guys, so that leads to my decision. I think that Miles Jury is going to get the win by unanimous decision. Alright, if you agree, disagree, or just have something to say, make sure to put it in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to back to every single one of those comments. Make sure to like, subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss the absolute best MMA content out there. It's been fun, but I'm out of here.